Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is May 22nd, 2022, and you are now watching Real Talk with Ronnie. My name is Ronald Lynn, the host of the fastest growing political talk show in New Jersey. Here on Real Talk with Ronnie, we only engage in real talk, real news in real time. We are now broadcasting on Salem Radio via AM 970. So if you want to listen to our program on one of New York City's biggest radio stations, please go to www.am970theanswer.com every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and click on the tab that says Listen Live on the top of the page during my show's broadcast time. As always, the video component of our show is airing live on Facebook, Rumble, and Getter right now as well. Please follow me on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube by searching for Real Talk with Ronnie. If you're on Getter, search for my handle at Ronald Joseph Lynn. To learn more about our show, visit our show's website at www.realtalkronnie.com. realtalkronnie.com. If you want to come on our show, have a guest in mind, or just want to reach out and say hello, please email us at realtalkwithronnie@gmail.com. realtalkwithronnie@gmail.com. One more thing, and I say this every single weekend, but please visit my campaign website at www.winwithlynn.us to learn more about me, my race for Bergen County Commissioner, and how you can get involved. My primary is coming up. It's on June 7th. It's like almost 2 weeks away. So please vote for me in my column 2. All right. So tonight we have a very interesting show. I like to entitle tonight's show The Tale of Two Charles. The reason is that both of my guests tonight are named Charles. That's right. They both share the same name. And that's where the similarity stops, because they have drastically different life stories. My first guest is Mr. Charlie Kahwaty, who is currently serving his 11th year as a councilman in my hometown of Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. Councilman Kahwaty is currently running for mayor of my great town as well, and we are so happy to have him on and hear his vision for my town. My second guest is Mr. Charles Lee. Mr. Charles Lee has actually been on my show previously, but we're very happy to bring him on once more, and this time airing him on Salem Radio so we can get a bigger audience for his great, incredible story. Mr. Lee is an entrepreneur, a real estate developer, and a Chinese dissident. In fact, Mr. Lee served 3 years in a Chinese prison due to his involvement with a meditation system and philosophy known as Falun Gong. And we will learn more about what that philosophy is when our segment airs. Mr. Lee has a fascinating backstory and an inspiring story of redemption and hope. Trained as a doctor at Harvard Medical School, Mr. Lee literally went from the prisons in China to a successful businessman in the US. You don't want to miss his testimonial. All right, let's bring on my first guest, Councilman Charlie Kahwaty.
Maybe you taste different. Hold up, baby.
Mr. Charles Kahwaty, actually Councilman Charles Kahwaty, thank you for coming on Real Talk with Ronnie.
Great pleasure, Ron. It's deja vu all over again. I think we did this about 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, it was a little less than that. I think it was last year.
Time gets away from you, but anyway.
Time flies every time when I hang out with you, Charles.
Oh, boy.
So, Charlie Kahwaty, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because, you know, the reason we're having you on is because you are the councilman in Franklin Lakes. You're currently serving your 11th year. I am from Franklin Lakes, so I figured it'd be a good chance to kind of boost you because you're currently running for mayor, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right.
Surprise. By the way, we have something else in common, Ron, because you also were brought up in Fairlawn. I was brought up in Fairlawn. So towns with an FL in them, there's a pattern here.
Right. Yep.
Just letting you know that. But no, I've been an attorney for about 40 years. I grew up a good part of my life in Franklin Lakes, which is a beautiful town. That's why I got on the council, why I want to run for mayor. And I have a general practice here in Ridgewood. I've been active in the Bar Association for many years, too. I'm a past president of the Bergen County Bar Association, and I'm currently president of the Bergen County Bar Foundation, which is its charitable wing. And we do scholarships and that sort of thing. So those have taken up a great deal of my time over the years. Again, bar, the legal aspect of it. I've always been interested in politics. I have to be honest, what got me interested was a Democrat, John Kennedy. And as a little kid, and I was a very little kid, but I do remember how dynamic and how much inspiration he brought to the country. And actually, I even memorized his inaugural address, believe it or not, as a little kid, like 8 years old or whatever. So that really got me on the path there. But I guess I was always looking for an opportunity to run. And this was opportunity presented itself when Mayor Bavono's seat was vacated when he became mayor. And I decided I'd like to go for it. And thank God the club and the council decided to appoint me to my current position. And now I've been here for 11 years. And at this juncture, having served in that capacity, and I think learned a little bit in that capacity, I think I can devote my energies even more effectively by being mayor.
Okay, great. And it's interesting to note that you said that your inspiration to getting involved in politics was actually a Democrat.
Yes.
President John F.
Jack
Kennedy. And coincidentally, you kind of have that, Kennedy-esque, hairstyle going on.
If that is indeed the case, Rod, it may begin and end right there, if you know what I mean. There may not be much below it, but at least the hair's there. That's true.
All righty.
I cast no aspersions, but go ahead.
All right, so Mr. Kahwaty, why don't you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Your childhood is quite interesting, right? Like your mother is actually from Australia, right?
That's right.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Thank you. Well, I told you before, I grew up in Fairlawn. I was born in Patterson, but my mother was a war bride. She passed on some years, but my father was a soldier in World War II, like millions of other Americans, and he's stationed in New Guinea. And I guess on R&R, he went down to Melbourne, which is the second largest city in Australia, and he saw my mother, and I guess that's where the whole story began. And as a result of that, he married her down there in Tasmania. She actually was from Tasmania, which is the island state of Australia, much like Hawaii is for us. And Tasmania, by the way, is huge. You don't realize that, but it's the size of Ireland, roughly, almost exactly. So it's a big place. But she came over here. I remember she told me that she landed first in Vancouver. And while she had seen snow on Mount Wellington, which is the mountain they have in Tasmania, she never ever walked on or touched it. So she fell on the snow on Vancouver, and two Mounties picked her up and said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "I married an American." They said, "Why did you marry a Yankee? You could have married one of us." And there you go. And she crossed the country and came to New Jersey and came to Patterson, where my father's parents and family were, and stayed with them until he could come over after the service. And that's the beginning of me. So without World War II, I would not be here. I don't know whether I should praise anybody for that, but anyway.
And what is your father's background? Because I know you mentioned that he served in the military, but what was his ethnic background?
Sure, I'll tell you about that. By the way, just tell you, he was in the he was a civilian advisor to the Army Air Corps, so he had the rank of captain in the event of capture. But he was mostly working on planes and did fly in some missions. The background is Syrian Catholic, which is kind of a little unusual. But I think he started to be a priest briefly, to be honest with you. Wow. And then my mother came along. That was the end of that notion. And his family came from Halab, which is also known as Aleppo, which unfortunately has been pretty much destroyed in that civil war by Russia. And I think they're doing the same thing now with the Ukraine. And my grandparents came over here probably for a variety of reasons, economic and religious. And they settled first in Rhode Island, which is where my father was born. And then they came down to Patterson. Now Patterson was known as the Silk City, as you may know. It was the capital for silk. And I think that drew them down. And then they took it from there.
Okay. Now, you have been serving as councilman in Franklin Lakes for 11 years.
Right.
And you're currently trying to move up to become the mayor, right, of Franklin Lakes.
That's right.
Now, Franklin Lakes is a town with roughly almost 12,000 citizens, right?
That's correct.
And it's an idyllic town, right? It's a very beautiful place.
I like to think so. I think you think so too.
Oh, yeah. But let me ask you, if you had to identify some issues that Franklin Lakes currently faces, what are some of the issues?
There's a number. One thing that's always going to recur, I was going to say so long as our Supreme Court, New Jersey Supreme Court is running the show, is affordable housing. And it's a problem that every single town in the state has to face. Every town has an affordable obligation, which is constantly in flux. And it's never fully satisfied. It's always subject to review, roughly every 5 years. Now we've addressed it in many ways. You can address it in terms of adult facilities, in terms of, I would say, developmentally challenged people. You could address it that way in terms of affordability. And of course, we have the development on McCoy Road. We have also Toll Brothers. We have some affordable housing there. We have affordable housing sprinkled all over the place. But that's a challenge because what we're trying to do, and I think the mayor and council were very effective in this, is put that housing in areas which were not primarily residential. And that way it would not have an adverse impact on property values to the extent we could do something like that. The other issues I can think of is always fiscal issues. Do you have enough money to do what you want to do? Most people don't know that only about 15% of your tax bill goes to the town for municipal services. A big chunk of that goes to the schools and a big chunk goes to the libraries. We've been fortunate, ironically, and again, I think I want to give credit particularly to Mayor Bavona, but also to the council, and that we've been very fiscally responsible. We have the best bond rating in the state. We have the second lowest tax rate in the county. I could say best or second best if you want to count Alpine, which has the best one. And of course, Alpine has very limited services. So if you think in the context of we have great services and a low tax rate, we've done very well in that regard. And that's a real credit. In terms of other issues, development issues of the downtown area, the downtown was, I'll say, ignored for many years. And then it began to be developed. And we do have a master plan for that. That was developed by the planning board. And I was on the planning board when that was developed. And we're trying to look at the different aspects of the planning board master plan and say, will this work? Will that not work? But it's always a function of money and what you have. But we have a surplus, which is good. And we've been able to reduce the debt significantly, which is also good. And also the government money that came as a result of the COVID issue. That's helped us a great deal. So, I mean, those are three things I can immediately put my hand on. I mean, there are other issues that come up, and you can never predict other issues. Certain things just happen. There's a major storm or tragedy or whatever the case may be. We lost power a few years ago. I mean, we have to address those issues. But for now, I think those would be three of the things that we have to continue to look at and address. And I would say, immodestly, the mayor and council have done a good job on that.
Okay, now this year, in your race for mayor, you're currently in a primary, right?
That's correct.
But it's interesting to know that the current mayor of Franklin Lakes has endorsed you. So, what does that mean to you?
Everything, in a word, everything. I do not believe I would be running unless I had his vote of confidence. He is an extremely able, extremely competent, extremely respected leader of this community. And for him to decide that I'm his choice versus the other individuals running, who's a very decent individual and smart lady, but for him to pick me is a great, great honor. Just going at his background just for a moment or talking about it, he comes from a municipal bond background.
And before we continue,
Sure.
Can you just tell us the name of the current mayor of Franklin Lakes?
Oh, sure. Frank Bavona. Don't want to leave that out. Frank Bavona.
And he's been mayor for how many years?
He came in when I came in. I took his seat as councilman, so he's been in for about 11 years.
Okay, great. All right.
And I was going to say, I'm sorry if you want to ask a question, but what I was going to say is he has a municipal bond background, which is great. He spent his career in that. So unlike some other people, he has not just a financial background, but he could look at a town and identify problem areas in terms of finances and areas where they excel. And I think Franklin Lakes has benefited from his expertise over the past 11 years. We've been very fortunate. We just got lucky.
Okay. But my question is, so the current mayor, who has been a very popular mayor, right? Very well liked, he's endorsed you.
Right.
So why is there a primary?
Well, that gets interesting. I've always been a member of the Franklin Lakes Republican Club. I still am. I was past president of the club. Talking to different individuals, I got the impression that, well, maybe I should back up a little bit. We've had a split in the club. We have factions, and that's not unusual. That happens in virtually every Republican club, but it happens here. It's happened before where the club is split and different people were elected. I decided to go on the ticket that I'm on now as I'll call it a gesture of reconciliation. It may not be viewed that way, but that was one of my motivating factors. I want to try to bring the other faction together with the existing faction and kind of create as much of a fusion ticket as I could. Whether I succeed in that regard or not is a different story. But that's what I was attempting to do. Now, the other side, since they did not have a candidate for mayor, picked my opponent to be the top of their ticket. And they also have the existing council people who are there. I'm running an independent campaign. And I've made that clear to everybody from day one, including the people on my ticket. I'm not running with or against them. I'm running my own campaign as an independent on that line. And I hope it will succeed. And of course, if I do succeed in that way, I will embrace whoever is elected. If I don't succeed, I still will embrace whoever's elected because I have 2 more years left on my council term.
Okay. So, Councilman, as I understand, the centennial of Franklin Lakes just recently happened. Franklin Lakes, I don't know the exact date, but it was started in March of 1922. So the centennial was a very, very big, it's a very big milestone, right?
Huge, huge.
March 19th in Franklin Lakes, there was the Roaring 20s Centennial Gala. Did you participate?
I did. I came in a very ugly and ill-fitting zoot suit to try to be as 1920s as I could with a fedora on top of me. And by the way, before I even get into this, I want to commend Dina Robinson. She's the lady who has organized this whole thing with her team. And I must say, she's done an extraordinary job. I don't know anybody who could have done a better job. She's been right on the money all the way in that regard. So just phenomenal. So I just want to say that. No, but going back to the gala, we had the Indian Trail Club. I think we had 400 plus people. We were just overwhelmed by the number of people. I think we had to put tents up to not violate the fire code. And just great time. The 20s theme in terms of food and drink and everything, perfect. Fit right in.
And also, it's coincidental because yesterday was the centennial parade of Franklin Lakes, right?
That's right.
That was a momentous event.
Momentous occasion.
A lot of people.
A lot of floats. Some people walked, some people went in cars. But I think it's probably the biggest parade it was in the history of the town, to be honest with you. And I'll be unlikely to replicate that anytime in the near future because how often do you have a centennial?
Right. Well, once, right?
Once. I wouldn't mind being around for the 200 years, but I think that may be a bit of a long shot. But certainly the 100th anniversary, it was phenomenal.
Now, Councilman, are there any other dates that are coming up that you would like to bring up?
I'll look at my little sheet here. On June 24th, we have fireworks that evening. September 17th, we're going to have our street fair, which is what they call Eats and Beats, which means food and music. Okay. And sometime during the fall, we're going to have a time capsule. Can't tell you what's going to be in that yet, but we will have a time capsule and people can put things in that. And that'll be pretty impressive too. I know some other towns are having their centennial, but I don't know of any town that's having something that's this ambitious.
Okay. Now, what is unique, the most unique thing about Franklin Lakes?
That you can have, I think, a semi-rural community surrounded by fairly congested communities and have that kind of bucolic, natural quality of life, like we have the nature preserve and the lakes that we have, and still be accessible to New York, to other cities, to other suburbs. I mean, Patterson is I won't say walkable, but it's just a few miles away. You can get to New York in 1 hour. I've had family come from Australia and be amazed that, we have deer, too many of them, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a real problem, eating all my shrubs and trees. But anyway, deer, wild turkeys, occasional fox, bears. You can have all that in our area. And by the way, not many people know this, but Franklin Lakes is the 3rd largest town by area in Bergen County. It's only exceeded by Mahwah and by Paramus. Oh, wow. So we're a big, not necessarily in population, but we're a big town in terms of area.
Okay. Now, if you can think of perhaps like 3 hidden gems within Franklin Lakes that people don't necessarily know about, like for people that are outside of Franklin Lakes, if they want to come to our town and kind of visit, like what are the 3 like hidden gems that you would like recommend? Okay.
Well, you may have caught me on that one, but let me think for a minute here. Well, I certainly would say the nature preserve. Number 1, which you can go kayaking on that. You can do a walk there. That's phenomenal. You've got Parsons Pond Park, which is a recent acquisition, which is a park there. And hopefully we may be developing that as time goes on, but that's a great natural area to go into right now. I, I think also Market Basket. I put it bluntly, they feed me every day or almost every day. So and it's funny. I've run into people there who are shopping, and they've come from Fort Lee and that far afield. In fact, there's one lady I was talking to there. I mean, she came from there. She said, I come here all the time from Fort Lee. And if you're there on a weekend, I've gone there campaigning. It seems like everybody's from out of town. So, I mean, those are three things that very quickly come to mind. But there are others. I just, on spur of the moment.
Okay. You mentioned that you go to Market Basket because they feed you, right?
They feed me.
What is your food of choice? Like when you walk into Market Basket, right? Like, what is your go-to meal?
Well, there are a couple of guys behind there, and most notable is Roberto, who is the guy who kind of runs the hot food area that's made every day. And I'll probably go for fish or chicken. I'm not really a beef guy. Mostly fish I'll go for. What's helpful for that, about that, is that if I have a council meeting or a planning board meeting, I only have like 10 minutes, not 10 minutes to eat, but 10 minutes to grab the meal and maybe half an hour to eat it, and then I've got to go to my meeting, or let's say municipal court or anything else I have. A lot of night activities. So they're great for that.
Okay. Now, Councilman, you may have mentioned this before, but what is your platform?
Well, I think I may have made it clear. If I did, I'll make it clear right now. First of all, maintaining fiscal integrity.
Okay.
Okay, and maintaining our bond rating, maintaining the low taxes. The average homeowner, and I should say the average home is about $1 million. They'll see their taxes go up by $7. You can't guarantee that all the time going forward, but I'd like to see us maintain that as much as possible. Maintain our bond rate, which I think is very critical, and that has an effect on the assessments in the town. Also, in terms of developing the downtown area that's consistent with our master plan. And that means making it a little bit more pedestrian friendly, maybe bike friendly, maybe improve the safety of the area and improve the aesthetics of the area. I think that's very important to do. And also more recreational and educational aspects for the town that we might be able to foster, which again may go to the Parsons Park area, Pond Park area, which is just right now being looked at, and things we can do in that area. Maybe have a band shell. A controversial area has been sidewalks. Sidewalks are always a little bit dicey because you don't want to disturb the aesthetics of the area and the fact that we have a broad open streets, but sometimes they're essential for kids going to school and the like. And we've had this issue come up before. So certainly I back sidewalks when the Board of Education wanted them. Whether we'll do it again, I don't know, but it's something we'll probably consider. But those are the key things in my mind, certainly the fiscal aspects of the town to make it attractive.
Okay, great. Now, Councilman, what are some of the things that you do for fun besides combing your beautiful hair?
Gee, my beautiful hair, and cutting it occasionally.
Right.
Well, that's interesting. I like to travel. That's why I have a great. I like to go to nice restaurants with friends and the like. Photography. I'm into photography. I've always been into photography, and I've published certain things in certain magazines. I was an aspiring journalist at one time before I became a lawyer. So sometimes I write some articles for periodicals and the like. The usual music, TV, movies, the usual stuff.
Okay. Now, Councilman, I understand you have a campaign website that recently launched, and the site is CJK4mayor.com. CJK4mayor.com.
That's correct.
And what can people find on this website, Councilman?
They can find my resume. They can find my vision, my statement for running. I was just checking with my composer to see what they have there. But if it isn't now, it should be interactive fairly soon if you want to make a donation. I'll give you an update as to events that I'm running on it. And I have something coming up hopefully next no, I'm not. That's the cancel. Forget about it. We're going to reschedule that for another date. Different activities I have going on. That'll be on that website. Everything we've talked about now, only in greater detail and depth.
Okay, great. Councilman, I will give you the next 2 minutes to give your best pitch. So please tell them, why should they vote for Charles Kahwaty on June 7th, which, by the way, June 7th is the primary date, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so why should they vote for Charles Kahwaty for mayor of Franklin Lakes on June 7th?
I love Franklin Lakes. I've been there for the better part of my life. I've contributed a substantial chunk of my life to making it a better town. I think I can make it an even better town and following the lead of Mayor Bavona, who's done an extraordinary job for this town. You look at the quality of life, it's almost unequaled by any suburban entity in Bergen County. I know the town. I've worked around the town. I think I've got the skill set to administer the town. As a background, I've been a bar president, I noted before. I've been a 40 plus year resident. I've won awards for representing people, including victims of domestic violence. I think that it's something that I was made for almost. And I think I've earned the respect of the people I've worked with and can work very collegially with them. And I've been doing that for the past 11 years. I've been trying to run a positive campaign, an independent campaign. I will listen to what people have to say. I don't take any claim or make any claim in asserting that I'm the only one who knows all the answers or knows all the issues. People always have different issues. And by the way, as a councilman, I've tried to address those issues. And when they've come to me and said, can you do this for me or can you do that for me? And I hope that maybe I won't always satisfy what you want me to do, but I hope I'll always do the right thing. And that's what I try to do during my entire career.
Thank you so much, Councilman Charles Kahwaty. Thank you for coming on Real Talk with Ronnie. It was a pleasure to catch up with you once more. And, if you want to check out more on the councilman's webpage and on his platform, please go to, once again, www.cjk4mayor.com. Charles Kahwaty, thank you for joining us. And
thank you. Always a pleasure, Ron, to be with you. Hope
Yep,
we do it again soon.
Sure. And we wish you the best of luck on your campaign. And, we wish you the best of luck on the primary on June 7th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay well, everybody. Take care.
Bitter. Maybe you taste different. Hold up, baby.
All righty. Welcome back to Real Talk with Ronnie, airing live on Salem Radio via AM 970. And welcome back to the second portion of our show tonight. If you watched our first portion, you got to see my exclusive interview with Charlie Kahwaty, my good friend and current councilman of Franklin Lakes, which is my hometown. Charlie is now running for mayor, and we wish him the best of luck in his campaign. Next up, let's welcome to Real Talk with Ronnie, my second Charles for the night, Mr. Charles Lee. Charles Lee is an entrepreneur, a real estate developer, and a Chinese dissident, and he had previously served 3 years in a Chinese prison for his involvement in a Chinese meditation system called Falun Gong. Tonight, we welcome him back onto our show to share his amazing story of despair, setback, and most importantly, hope.
Bitter. Maybe you taste different. Hold up, baby.
All right, guys. Thank you and welcome back to Real Talk with Ronnie. We're airing on AM 970 on Salem Radio every Sunday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So don't forget to tune in. On my show tonight, we have Mr. Charles Lee, who is a good friend of mine. But Mr. Charles Lee has a very compelling and interesting backstory. And we're so happy to have him on our show today to share his story with all of us. Charles, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Ron. Nice to be here.
Okay. So for the audience and the listeners who are watching and listening now, who may not know you, Mr. Charles Lee, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from, and a little bit about your childhood?
Yes, I was born in China like 50-something years ago, but I came to this country in 1991 to study the neuroscience. I went to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and spent 3.5 years over there. Then I got a master's degree in physiology. Then I went to Harvard Medical School to do some research work. And during that time, I passed the medical board exams in the United States board for step 1 and step 2. But I did not go to practice medicine because something happened back in China, because in 1997, I got to know a meditation system called the Falun Gong. Then I got into that because it's so powerful. So I started practice. Falun Gong is based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. It has 5 sets of exercise, including 1 sitting meditation. When I practice that, I feel so powerful because the entire myself, it's been changed in a very big way. And also I studied the teachings of that system, which is also very powerful. So, I started practice in 1997, but starting from 1998, there was some trouble in China because the Communist Party did not like it. And starting from 1999, they started the persecution, which means they want to wipe the entire practice away. Nobody in China can practice this system, this meditation system. They're against the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. They want everybody to give up the practice, and many of them are forced to write some kind of guarantee that I'm not going to practice anymore. All those things. So that is the one of the reasons why I did not go to the practice of the medicine. I went to China trying to help. Then I went back and forth a few times, and eventually I was arrested and put in prison. So, but anyways, to your question, Ron, I want to go back to my childhood. I think for a lot of people in this country, they cannot understand what it's like to live in China, especially back into the time of Cultural Revolution, because the Communist Party in China, they control everything, all the resource and all the even the air. They control all the everything, water, air. And for the media, they have 100% control. There's nobody in China has ever had any free media, such as newspaper, radio, or station, nothing at all. So when we were a child, like small kids, we were indoctrinated by the Communist Party about all their theories, all their like a class struggle theory. And also we did not get any access to any information from outside of China. So we watched some kind of movies made by the CCP for some kind of propaganda. That, of course, it's based on the communist ideology. And, we were like taught in the very beginning that the United States was the worst country in the world. So a lot of Chinese people, they really have hatred in their mind, their heart, towards this country. So that's a lot of people do not understand it. Even if they come to this country, they still have this hatred. A good example is that in 2011 there was like a 9/11 bomb on the World Trade Center. A lot of Chinese were very happy about that. They said America deserved that because they have been so bad. So it's the power of brainwash. So if you talk to a lot of Chinese, from mainland, they still love the Communist Party because they did not have any chance to have any free information. So I think that's the key point people need to understand. Even though you look at these people like real human beings, but their mindset, their thinking, are totally different.
Okay, wow. So I have a few questions. So you came to the United States, studied in the graduate school here, even went to Harvard Medical School, right, to study. Afterwards, you passed your board exams, right?
Yes.
But then you chose not to practice medicine because at around this same time, you started to learn about the teachings of Falun Gong, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, why couldn't you have practiced medicine and still continue to practice, Falun Gong at the same time?
I think, there might be some kind of miscommunication over here, because I did not go to practice of medicine, not because I practiced Falun Gong, because something happened in China. So at that time, they in 1990, they started to have, some kind of issues with Falun Gong from 1996. They had some kind of, in China, these, as I just said, that they control all the media. They have some kind of newspapers in 1996 say Falun Gong is kind of superstition. If you believe in God and believe in Buddha in China, people sometimes laugh at you because it's kind of stupid. Like to their eyes, anybody who believes in God are dumb, because of these ethics, teachings from the Communist Party. They don't believe in God, and they don't like people who believe in God or Buddha, that kind of nature. So that's why in 1996 they started this kind of criticism against Falun Gong, say, it's kind of superstition. But they did not have a full force crackdown on Falun Gong in 1996. But towards 1998, there was more serious issues, situations like that. And then in 1999, they started to crack down. So I was like, at that time, I feel like, it's kind of urgent because I came from China. I understood how the Communist Party works and the means, to crack down on people. So I went back to China to try to help. So that was the major reason I could not, I did not go to the practice of medicine. And then I was arrested and spent, 3 years in prison. So that was, the major reason, I did, something else. I started
Okay.
business later on.
Okay, so back to Falun Gong. So for all the viewers and listeners who are watching or listening now, right? Can you please give a very a very brief description and history of what exactly is Falun Gong? So from what I understand, right, it is a sort of it's not a religion, right? But it's a sort of spiritual movement.
I do not know if you can characterize that as a movement, but what I can tell you is that Falun Gong, we do believe in the principles of truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, and also we believe that there are a lot of high beings above human world. So that's why we do have common grounds with other religions who believe in God, who believe in Buddha, that kind of things. So that's the teaching, because we know and we believe through the practice that there are living beings outside of this human world, or above the human world. It's, that kind of nature. So that's why if you say it's a religion, maybe it has some similar background and belief system, but we do not practice like other religions. We don't have temples or churches or worship anybody. So that's kind of different from religion. So if you talk about the legal situation, or from legal point of view, it is a religion in a sense that it should be have a freedom to practice. So yeah, and the Falun Gong itself is as I just explained, is a kind of meditation system to have this mind and body exercises to improve your well-being. People practice Falun Gong have become very healthy. We did have investigations back in China a long time ago. The 97 to 98% of people who practice Falun Gong have drastic improvements on their health, and they don't need to see doctors anymore because all the diseases are gone. So that's a kind of, I studied neuroscience, and I understand the power of mind. Because when we practice this Falun Gong, we always trying to purify our mind. We want to get rid of the bad thoughts, bad behavior, and also do not want to harm other people. We want to be kind to everybody.
Okay.
So after you do this, your mind will be pure. Once your mind is pure, then when you do this meditation, your mind and body will be in a harmonious state. That way, your immune system will be improved, and all the other things will be improved in your body as well. So mind and body, it's a very powerful practice. That's why it's so popular in China at that time. Between the year of 1992 and the end of 1998, the number of the people practice Falun Gong, went up to 100 million. So that's why one of the reasons why the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, didn't like it, because they're so popular, and they are afraid of losing control over the society, because the Communist Party always use violence and lies to control people. But we practice truthfulness. We don't corrupt like the communist official. What they do is corrupt it all the time. So
okay. So to the best of my understanding, Falun Gong is a sort of like philosophy. It's a meditation system that helps the individual cleanse the mind and soul and heart of any negative stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, okay. So, I mean, it seems like Falun Gong is a pretty innocuous sort of philosophy, right? Like it doesn't harm anybody. So why is the Chinese government so strict against it? Like, why are they cracking down on the Falun Gong?
Yeah, I think, if you look back into the history of the CCP, they always control the society in a full scale. Nobody or no groups of people can have different thinking, different way of doing things from the Communist Party. That's why, they have these political movements one after another, and they had a big famine, which is 100% the main cause big famine in 1959 to 1961. The estimate is that at least 45 million people starved to death in China due to the government's policies. So this is the way they control the society, control people's mind. So when Falun Gong came out, it is, they thought was beneficial to the Communist Party because people are much healthier. They don't want to, they don't spend money on the Medicare, system. That's why they liked that in the beginning.
Now, when was Falun Gong first started? Like when did it?
1992.
Okay, 1992 was what's it was
When Mr. Li Hongzhi, came around to, went around the country to teach this system. Then the people practice this system, grew like exponentially. So that was very fast, all of like wildfire, across the country.
And today, where is the founder of Falun Gong?
He's in New York, someplace. Yeah.
Now, is he also? I mean, has he also been persecuted by the Chinese government?
Yes, the Chinese government, the Communist Party had a warrant of arrest on him in 1999. So he could not go back, so that's the situation right now.
Okay. Now, Charles, let's talk about you, right? Because you have a very, it's a remarkable story, but also it's a very painful story, right? So right. So because of your involvement with Falun Gong, you went back to China. I believe it was when, like in 2000, right?
Yeah, I went back a few times, 2000, 2001,
right.
2, and 2003.
But then ultimately, I believe in 2003, because of your involvement in the Falun Gong movement, you were actually arrested by the Chinese government, right?
Yes.
And you were put in a Chinese prison for how long?
3 years.
For 3 years. And what was the official charge that was levied against you?
Yeah, well, that was like in 2002, I went back. I'm trying to tap into the CCTV system. It's closed, it's sort of cable TV system, trying to broadcast some kind of truth video, like real story of Falun Gong. What happened? There was an incident in 2001. Was they call that self demolition and self-immolation. Like people put fire on themselves. They claim they were Falun Gong practitioners. They want to burn themselves to death. They say those people were crazy. That's why they had they trying to incite the hatred in Chinese people against Falun Gong, so they have more reason or more excuse to persecute Falun Gong. But we did analysis on those videotapes, and they find out those are not actually Falun Gong practitioners, and also they were staged. There are a lot of things, like people sit there waiting for the policeman. The policeman had a blanket trying to extinguish the fire, but they waited until this guy shouted some kind of slogan, some kind of slogan. So, and then they put the blanket on top of that guy. So it's a lot of stages, but it's
so
false.
This video of a self-immolation, which is when someone burns themselves, right? When someone sets themselves on fire. This happened where? In China?
In China, in Tiananmen Square. That was 2011, January 23rd of 2001.
Okay, so in 2001, there was a video that was circulated in China of a supposed practitioner of Falun Gong in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, China, setting
them on fire,
setting himself on fire, trying to burn themselves in the name of Falun Gong, right?
Exactly. Then we analyzed it. Yeah.
So this was a video that was circulated in China as a means to let the public know that practitioners of Falun Gong are these crazy people who set themselves on fire.
Yes.
But you and your organization, well, your group, you examined this video, and you came to the conclusion that this video was fake. Well, not fake, but it was staged, right?
Staged, they are staged by the Communist Party. So I mean, they do this all the time because it's the nature of the Communist Party. They always lie and tell lies, incite hatred, that kind of things. You know, I don't know if you log into a website called 9commentaries.com. There is a book in there. 9 is like not digital 9, just word 9commentaries.com. The book called the 9 Commentaries on Communist Party. It gives you, the history of the Communist Party and that there are 9 evil genes in the Communist Party. So telling lies is like the gene of the Communist Party. They always. So that's why, if you look at the history, our country, have been trading with the Communist Party.
Though
China.
I will say this, I will say that a particular government, it doesn't matter which government, telling lies, I don't think that's a unique thing. I think that happens with every government, right?
Yeah, that's the point.
Right.
Here's the thing wrong, because many people tell lies, right? But if you have a organization or political party, they always tell lies. Lying is a gene. It's like within their genes. So that's like very unique, right? People tell lies for a lot of reasons, but what if a person always tell lies, always trying to trick you, always trying to manipulate? Like if you sign the contract with the Communist Party, they never really do anything according to the contract, right? So the reason to sign the contract is to get you onto something, but they are not going to comply with the contract or any rules and regulations. That's a unique part.
Well, I think that same commentary can be said about the Democratic Party here today, and I'm sure if you talk to a lot of Democrats, they'll probably say the same thing about the GOP, right? So I mean, there's plenty of mud to go around. But my question is, so there was this video of this self-immolation person, right?
Yeah.
Setting themselves on fire in the name of Falun Gong.
Yes.
This video was widely circulated as a way for the Communist Party in China to try to paint the practitioners of Falun Gong as this crazy group of people, right?
Yeah.
So you got a hold of this video, you examined this video, and you came to the conclusion that it was staged. So then your next action was to
spread the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
You wanted to spread the truth. And one of the ways that you were trying to do this was by breaking into the CCTV stations and trying to play this video, right?
Yeah.
And during one of these attempts, that's when you were arrested, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, for the first time, I was sort of detained, but they did not know what I was trying to do. So
So this wasn't the first time you were arrested. So you got arrested once before.
No, more than once, actually, a few times. But sometimes, you don't call the arrest, because arrest is a legal term, like you are sort of suspect of a certain crime.
So
you
were detained. You were
I was detained. Then they did not know what I was trying to do. So, I got a chance to escape from the detention center. That was 2002 in October. So I came back to this country. I went back again in 2003. And then that was time I was, arrested and put in prison. But they had a show trial. I was not allowed to present my evidence or allowed to defend myself. So they said I was trying to destroy the CCTV, but I was not, because I was trying to use the CCTV to broadcast the truth. So that was like, if you talk about legal things, there's a lot of things in there, but they did not allow me to present my evidence. The reason why I want to do that, the technique, all those things. So it's show trial at the time.
Okay, so you were detained a number of times. The last time you were detained was in 2002, but then you managed to escape. So
yes.
You escaped a Chinese, jail
detention center,
right?
Yeah.
And then you came back to the U.S. and then you decided to push your luck. So you went back to China in 2003.
Yes.
That's when they arrested you, and then there was a trial, but you said it was a show trial. So basically, they did not let you present your case, and you were subsequently put into prison for 3 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. So can you please tell us what is prison like in China?
I think by and large, the China is a country actually is the big prison itself, because you don't have any freedom like speech or anything. right now, people cannot even get out of the country in China. But for the prison per se in China, it's so much different from the prisons outside, of the country, of China, because if you are arrested in China and put in prison, you will be forced to perform the slave labor, which means if you do not make things for them, make products, then you're going to be like tortured, punished. And also they have this kind of they call it transformation process. They try to indoctrinate all the things to you, trying to torture you so you can say like what do you confess, right? You want to say like, I'm guilty, I'm a bad person, I really want to follow the party, all those things. It's a mental torture. It's also physical torture. It's like torture there all the time. So that's and they because you lost your freedom anyways, right? But in China, you could be killed anytime in prison, because we do have a lot of fellow practitioners we know who were tortured to death in China because they refuse to confess, and they've been brainwashed, and they've been beaten. So it's like, I don't know. You can call that as a hell. It's real hell in prison in China. So I mean, I can talk about a lot of details, because there are a lot of subtle things. It's difficult to express by language. Like for myself, when I was in prison, my mother had this leukemia disease. Right? They used my mother to like give me pressure. Say if you confess, you could be released early, then you can serve your mother or something like that. So I refused to cooperate with them. So my mother died when I was in prison. And also the other thing is they because I was already American citizen at that time, so they want to show they are like they have some humanity or something, right? So they let me to go back to my hometown to like sort of meet my mother for the last time, but they did not inform me in time. They waited a day, and then on the second day in the morning they say, okay, you need to go back because your mother is maybe is dying or something. So right, we had a car drive like maybe like three hours or something to 4 hours, but right before my I couldn't reach to my home like in time. My mother died like 45 minutes before I arrived. So that was like set up, nobody, very few people could understand how this Communist Party can torture people in a subtle way, like make you suffer the most. And still on the surface, they can still say, oh, we've been like nice to you because we send you home. But that was even a worse torture in that way. So, when I talk about this Communist Party, there are so many things that, it's really difficult to express by this language, but human language is short.
All right. So my question is, so you served in prison there for 3 years. So how were you able to come out of there relatively, fine? Because
yeah, relatively fine. Yeah, that's a nice word though, because I said I was already an American citizen, so my case drew a lot of attention from this country and also around the world, because other countries, they were, people also like appeal for me, say, release Charles Lee, and all those things. So they illegally sentenced me 3 years in prison. I served every single day, and I was not released even a day early. So, but they did not have any excuse to lock me in further. And also, I believe they did the calculation. If they continue to lock me in, there will be like more loss in terms of reputation, that all the other things for the Communist Party. So they just released me on time.
Okay.
So relatively okay that can say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure if the CCP or any government wanted to keep you in prison, they could find a way, right? They could find a way.
They could, but I believe they actually they even threatened me. They could prolong my sentence. They could, because they found a reason, whatever they, there was one funny story. They because we practice truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance in the last 22, 23 years of the persecution. We did not have any case of Falun Gong practitioners using violence against the persecutors, right? Against the policemen or other prisoners. Because when I was in prison, I believe that a lot of, almost all Falun Gong practitioners were watched and tortured by fellow prisoners, inmates. So there was one case, it's kind of funny story though, because there were a group of inmates watching me like 24 hours a day. Like even when I was sleeping, taking shower, go to bathroom, they always watch you. It's like zero personal space and all. But there was one case, a guy was like sort of has kind of conscience. He told me that the prison guards asked him to fake something, like he wanted these inmates to criticize me, like accuse me of beating him. He showed a kind of scar, something on his arm. So this prison guard want me to say, you beat me, and so something like that. So that's what I'm saying. They have a lot of ways to, if they want to prolong the sentence, right? They have a lot of ways. Somebody came out say, you hit me, you
Right.
tortured me, or some whatever reason that you can prolong the sentence.
Well, can I ask you, while you were in prison there, were you ever physically abused by the other prisoners?
Yeah, I was, but not to the extent as other prisoners or other Falun Gong practitioners, because as I said, I had that American citizenship. So they tortured me by the ways like force me to stand or force me to sit for hours every day, and did not allow me to talk to anybody. No TV, no newspapers, nothing. Just sit there or stand there. You had a pain on your butt and on your back and all those things.
How was the food like in prison?
The food is horrible, because I mean it's the thing. The food safety in China is horrible. So it's by and large in China, it's very difficult to buy so-called organic food like we do in this
Right.
country. For ordinary prisoners, you get up like very early, like 5:30, then had a breakfast, then go to work, go to the prison factory, work sometimes until 10 p.m., sometimes even later, because they have so many things to make. So we were paid like eight US Chinese yuan, like $1 a month. We were paid $1 a month, working like 10, 12, or even 14, 16 hours a day. So the $1 is for like you need to buy toothpaste, that kind of things, right? So that's how much you were paid in China.
What types of products did you make in prison? Like what
We
kinds
made a lot of things. We made a shoes.
for like Nike?
Yeah, maybe Nike, but we did have I made a Homer Simpson slippers,
Oh,
which people
nice.
wear in the bedrooms. Well, it's kind of funny cartoon, but when you were forced to make that in prison, that's totally different story. You were
Right. So
paid
I bet now
$1.
you hate the Simpsons, right? Now you hate the Simpsons.
I do not hate Simpsons. Simpsons is still funny guy, but the thing
Right.
is, people have trade, and companies from this country, they just give this contract to some company in China, and they subcontract to the prisons. So imagine how cheap the products from China could be, because they have so many slave laborers with zero cost, almost zero cost, right? So that's how competitive they are. If you trade with China, they can almost wipe out everybody else.
Right.
That's the critical situation we are facing right now.
Now, Charles, before you were arrested and sent to prison in the U.S., you had your own company, right?
Yeah, that was in California.
Okay. And what kind of business did you have then?
We did some kind of Chinese medicine stuff. trading, that
Okay,
kind
so
of
you
thing.
were trading and exporting the Chinese herbal medicines, right? And
Exactly.
and then when you were arrested, your business basically was shut down, right?
Yeah, just
Okay.
wrong
So
wired. Nobody's taking care of the
yeah,
things.
so
Yeah.
please tell us what happened once you got back to the U.S. Because when you came back to the States after you served your time in prison, you
Yeah.
were basically penniless, right? Your business was gone,
Yeah, I
and
owe
you
a lot
had
of
to
money.
right, and you
Yeah.
had to start all over again. So
Yeah.
what did you do? Can you tell us about how you built yourself back up to where
Yeah,
you
I
are
think
today?
that basically, I think the three steps. So the first step was, I was peddling shoes. I bought the shoes like in warehouses in Los Angeles, and then I moved to New York. I bought, the shoes from Flushing. They were warehouses. These most of these shoes actually are imported from China. They were
Right, and
so.
and the funny thing is, these shoes are probably the type of shoes that prisoners in China make, right?
Exactly. So that's where I came from, right? So that's so bad. But anyways, that's where I started. I started like peddling shoes on streets. Like I make like $10, $15 a pair. So then after a few months, I started a flooring company, selling carpets, um, hardwood floors, things like that. And then business was nice in 2017. Then in 2018 there was kind of crash. The entire market crashed. So we were barely survived. But anyways, and then we started the real estate business. I went to Trump University and I studied, and then we bought some houses. We expand along the way. Then we rent the houses, apartment buildings, that kind of things. That's basically three stages on the business. So
Okay, so when you came back from China from prison, you had nothing. You were in
I
heavy
owe a
debt.
lot of money as well because
Yeah,
I
you
was in debt, and my credit score was very low.
right.
Everything was kind of on the bottom.
Yeah,
So
you had no money, and in fact, you owed a lot of money, but you managed to come back from that through three steps, right? You first started to ironically sell shoes that were made in China, the
yeah,
same shoes that you had to make while in Chinese prison. So you came back here, you started to
selling
peddle
shoes.
shoes on the streets in LA, in New York City, right?
Yeah.
From that, you built up some capital, and then second stage, you started a flooring company, right?
Yes. Yes.
The flooring company did well, and then you moved up, and then you got into real estate. So you
Yes.
started to invest in residential property and commercial property, right?
Yeah.
And today you actually own a big portfolio of commercial properties in northern Jersey, right?
Well, I cannot say that's a big portfolio. It's okay, like I'm trying to sell some residential houses right now. So I used to have like I don't know, it's good size, but we do have a lot of issues, especially in the past 2 years, because the rental issues and all those things. So we're trying to get out of it right now, little by little. So, but
Okay.
we do have some plans for the future. So it's a sort of struggle, but it's also uh, I can say that you can see hope
Right.
in this country.
So, Mr. Lee, what are the lessons that you want our listeners and viewers to take away today?
I think putting it this way, because we're facing the biggest danger in human history, because the Communist Party, and they have this kind of ambition to control the world. The term they use is what the human, the common community of human world. That's the word, the phrase they use. The Communist Party want to be the master of this community.
I think the other lesson that our viewers and listeners can take away from this show is that that you were able to kind of rise back up from nothing, right,
Hmm.
and make it to where you are today, right? So when you came out of prison, you had no money, you were in debt, but you, through sheer hard work and dedication, and just through sheer willpower, you were able to build back your empire, and now you are successful. So I think that's another lesson that people can take away from today's show, is that if you work hard, if you put your mind to do something, you
Yeah,
can succeed.
yeah. I think that's there's one saying that God helps those people who help themselves. So it's like, you know, the willpower and the faith within yourself is the most important thing, because never lose your faith in God. You know, it's you know, if you work hard and if you are kind to yourself and to other people, then you will be rewarded in a way that you know, comparing to doing bad things to other people is much better way to live.
Okay, great. Mr. Charles Lee, thank you for
Thank you,
your
Ron.
Real Talk with Ronnie. Thank you for telling us about your compelling story, right? And we hope to catch up with you in the future to see what you're up to.
Yes,
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ron. Goodbye.
Bitter. Maybe you taste different. Hold up, baby.